You know, your brain is probably the most complex, most powerful piece of hardware you will ever own. We use it literally 24/7. But here's a question. Have you ever actually stopped to read the manual?
I mean, just think about it for a second. What if you had a guide that could explain why you put things off? Or a cheat sheet for learning way, way faster? What if you knew the one secret that makes a team just click?
Well, that's exactly what this is all about. See, psychology isn't just for therapy sessions. It's the fundamental science of how your mind works. Think of it as the operating system that runs, well, everything, from your memory to your relationships. Okay, so if we're going to master this system, we need to start with the basics. And it really all comes down to building one specific skill. And that skill is called psychological literacy. Now, this isn't about memorizing a bunch of dry theories from a textbook. Not at all. It's about taking proven psychological principles and actually applying them to make better decisions and improve your life every single day. That's our goal here. All right, so where do we even begin? Let's start with your mental software. You know, the programs that handle all your learning and decision making. Let's see if we can install a few crucial upgrades. Let's take learning, for instance. So many of us, myself included, fall into the trap of cramming for a test. But cognitive psychology has shown pretty conclusively that spreading out your study sessions using something called spaced repetition is way more effective for building strong long-term memory. It actually gives your brain the time it needs to properly wire in those new connections. But you know, just like any piece of software, ours isn't perfect. Our brains evolved to use these little mental shortcuts, right? But sometimes those shortcuts lead to these really predictable errors in our thinking. Psychologists have a great name for these glitches: cognitive biases. And here are two of the biggest bugs you'll find. First up, confirmation bias. This is where our brain basically gets stuck in an echo chamber, only paying attention to information we already agree with. The fix? You've got to force yourself to play devil's advocate. Then you've got the sunk cost fallacy. You know that nagging feeling that you have to stick with a bad plan just because you've already invested so much time or money into it? The key here is to ignore what's already gone and just ask yourself, based on right now, what's the smartest move going forward?
Okay, so we've looked at our internal software. But what happens when we plug into a network with other people? Let's zoom out and look at the psychology of what makes a team great.
So Google launched this massive study. They called it Project Aristotle, to figure out what makes the perfect team. And they assumed, like most of us would, that it was all about getting the smartest people, the top experts, all in one room. Turns out, they were totally wrong. It wasn't about who was on the team. It was all about how the team worked together. And this was the secret ingredient: psychological safety. It's that shared feeling that you can be vulnerable with your team, that you can admit a mistake, or ask a dumb question, or throw out a totally wild idea without worrying you're going to get shut down or look stupid. It's the absolute bedrock of trust. And look, the impact here is massive. The research showed that teams with high psychological safety aren't just happier. They're more innovative, they're better at catching errors, and get this, they see an average productivity jump of 19%. That's real proof that how we feel directly changes how we perform. And that idea that how we feel directly impacts how we perform, that leads us right to our physical hardware. This is where we see that powerful, undeniable link between your mind and your body. Okay, that's a mouthful, I know, psychoneuroimmunology. But the idea behind it is actually pretty revolutionary. PNI is the hard science that literally maps out how your thoughts and feelings, especially stress, send direct signals that can either weaken or strengthen your body's defenses. So how does this actually work? Well, when your brain senses a threat, and that could be a looming deadline or even just a difficult conversation, it kicks off this whole hormone cascade. It floods your system with cortisol, the main stress hormone. Now, in a quick burst, that's helpful. But when stress just goes on, those high levels of cortisol actually start to suppress the very immune cells that are designed to protect you, which makes you more likely to get sick. It's a direct feedback loop from your mind to your body. All right, so we've looked at the mental software, the social dynamics, and even the physical hardware. Let's pull it all together and talk about how you can become a true power user of your own mind. So think of this as your new mental toolkit. You can upgrade your learning by ditching cramming and using spaced repetition. You can debug your own thinking by watching out for those common biases like the sunk cost fallacy. You can install psychological safety to build incredible teams. And you can protect your actual physical hardware by understanding and managing how you respond to stress. And really, that's the whole point, isn't it? This isn't just a bunch of interesting facts. Understanding these psychological principles gives you agency. It empowers you to go from being a passenger in your own mind to being the active architect of your habits, your work, and your well-being. So now you have a page from the manual. The only question is, what are you going to upgrade first?